Hi, welcome back to another session of Ask Nati. Today, a daily question that I have. Since I'm meeting with people and trying to convince them to use our services in order to use system thinking to help them to resolve issues, the main question is, can you explain us how your methodology is working? So I try to do it high level in several minutes, and we'll see how I'm going to do it. So I think there are 5 main steps that we are doing, and they are not different from anyone else. I think the difference is more in the way that how we are doing it. So like everyone else, first of all, we understand the business challenge that is in front of us. Then we are collecting data. We simply collect data in different ways. Then we are doing synthesis and analysis, but mainly synthesis, while most of the other players in the market will do just analysis. They won't touch synthesis one way or another. And after we collect the data, after we done synthesis, then we are then we understand what are the issues that probably cause the problem that we are after, and what are the solutions that can be put in place. And there are very, by the way, very tangible solutions that can put in place in order to resolve those issues. So the next step is finding and recommendations, where we meet with the customers and we present what we find so far and what we recommend to do. And last but not least, like everyone else, if the customer decide to adopt our recommendation, we are more than happy to be part of the implementation process, because we truly believe that it's not enough just to pay a visit and be the smart asses that looking at stuff outside of the company and going away. We think that it's more important also to be part of the solution. So that's more or less high level the process. The main difference start, I think, also already from when we understand the business challenge, because we are doing synthesis, we are dealing more with the system rather than with parts of the system. And the first challenge that we have is to understand what is the boundaries of the system that we are trying to deal with. So there's a problem, and the problem not necessarily apply to the entire organization. So our first challenge is to understand what are the subsystems, or what is the system that we want to deal with, and where to cut the boundaries between the system that we're after and the entire organization. If we want to do that, to analyze, to do a synthesis to an entire organization, that's a damn very, very long, hard process. So that's the first one. The second one is collecting data. So we are collecting data not in a different way. So we still meeting with people, we still ask questions, but what we are after is slightly different. So we are very focused on the business ecosystem and the evolution of the business so far. It's very important for us to understand that. Then we spend a lot of time to understand people in the organization, their mental model, how they behave, what are their constraints. This is extremely important for us. Then we starting to use causal diagrams that define different loops or causal loops within the organization. And I won't get into the details what are causal loops and how to use it. You can read it in our blogs, and I'll try to touch it in today's tweets. But causal loops simply help us to understand what is the dynamics between elements in the system, and there are different types of causal loops, and each one of those types can indicate or a problem or a trend that you definitely want to keep on evolving in organization. Once we have the causal loops, we are using elements from system thinking that calls flow diagrams. And flow diagrams simply show you how the flow is being done in between different elements in the system. It's very beneficial, A, because it's not just taking the causal, it's also adding the flow, and B, because you can take those diagrams and actually run them in simulation and see how the organization is going to react or hopefully respond to changes that we believe that might be needed to implement in the system. So simulation is pretty, I think, powerful, and we can do it by using the flow diagrams. Last but not least, we truly believe that aggregate interaction between people are very important to understand the dynamics of a system, and we are spending time to at least capture the four main aggregate interaction in a system to understand them. They always exist, I can tell you, but we want to understand the dynamic of them. Once we collect all of this data, then we are doing the synthesis. And the synthesis is more finding out different, I'm trying to do it without getting into too much details. The synthesis is getting all the data that we collected so far and trying to identify elements in the causal loops and in the flows diagrams that if we address them, we will going to improve the system, because right now they are causing issues in the system, and there are really well-known causal loops that will cause issues. For example, if you are getting into reinforcing loop, those are loops that reinforce themselves all the time. If you are getting into negative, if you see a negative reinforcing loop, it means that the system surely but slowly or fast kind of killed itself. And once you find that and you can address it, you actually helping a lot the system. Or if the system has a balancing loop, those are loops that keeps everything in balance. Nothing actually goes up and nothing goes down. This is also an opportunity for change, because if you can turn it into a reinforcing loop that goes up, then you introduce a major change to the system. So I'm 7 minutes in, and but this is the gist of the analysis that we are doing, synthesis that we are doing. We're taking the entire data that we collected and we're trying to see how the system as a whole is operating and what we can do in order to improve the overall operation of the system. And usually it's pretty shocking for other people to see what you can find and understand about their organization without doing the regular analysis. So that's the synthesis. And obviously after the synthesis, it's more or less like everyone else. You will turn your finding into kind of a document that shows visually what we found, what we believe is the root cause, what we believe are the symptoms that you can find, but they are not the root cause, and what we believe is the right way to resolve the problems and to make the organization better. Now, just one thing that I want to mention is that several times when you're showing to people the root cause and the symptoms, there is a very healthy debate, because many people tend to see symptoms at the root cause, and it takes time to realize that there are symptoms to the system that you can see, but they are not actually the root cause, and there's just usually one or two root cause to a problem that if you touch them, you're actually going to resolve the problem. The main issue is that it's not so convenient to touch them. but that's completely different discussion. So 10 minutes. Sorry, I thought I was going to do it in much less time, but I hope that that gives a high-level overview of how our engagement look like, how we suggest you to use the same methodology in order to dive into your world and find out what are the root cause of problems that bugs you for so long time. Thank you.